Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you for checking in. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's discuss how the relationship between Russia and the U.S. is declining right now and on the verge of a breach. We'll also talk about how Senator Lindsey Graham said it publicly, assassinate Putin. Man, oh man, putting the Biden-Harris administration at odds. Also, we'll discuss the second day of the confirmation hearings with law professor Najiri Rutledge to give us some insight about what she's seeing and what she's hoping for. And then later, how can we normalize Black excellence and Black achievement in the classrooms? We check in with Dr. Marco Clark to give us some answers. And then, you ever thought about renting a stranger? Well, I'm going to tell you why folks are making the investment to bring somebody close to them, but not too close. We'll have that and a whole lot more. Got the Culture crew, got some fantastic guests. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here, only on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. We got a lot to get to, so let's get started. First and foremost, up on the agenda today, we want to discuss a little bit about the relationship between Russia and the United States. As it stands right now, folks, according to what's coming out of Moscow, what's coming out of the Kremlin, the relationship is on the verge of a breach. This seems to be happening again, of course, as Russia continues to move closer to the capital of Kyiv in Ukraine, but it also comes on the heels of what President Biden describes as President Putin's plans, which is that he is a war criminal. Now, if you've not, been up on all of that's been happening in that part of the world, President Biden has said very strongly that he thinks President Putin is a thug and that he believes that the crimes against civilians that President Putin have ordered in light of the bombings of places in Ukraine that are not military spaces, the theater, the maternity hospital, and other civilian shelters, it puts him in the same category as a war criminal. Now, Jen Psaki, who serves as the press secretary for the president in the White House, said that there are going to be some review of policy and, of course, of actions of President Putin before a term like that gets attached to the leader of Russia. But President Biden has already put it out there that he thinks that he's a war criminal. Now, as a result of that, the Kremlin is not happy. They told a U.S. ambassador, per the reports, that the U.S. ambassador should actually do an official protest against President Biden, which I don't think is going to happen, folks. But they asked this U.S. ambassador to protest against its own president in terms of because of the criticism of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Russian Foreign Ministry has put out a statement on Monday saying that the recent unacceptable statements by President Biden about Putin puts this relationship on the verge of a breach. And that it was emphasized that remarks such as these by the American president, which are unworthy of a state figure of such a high rank, puts this whole relationship on the verge of a breach. This is a very, very interesting scenario that we're looking at. So we're going to bring in Dr. Gerald Horne, who is a professor of race, class, and has taught about foreign policy and domestic policy as it relates to this country. And we're going to get some insight from that. Also, I'm joined by our culture crew, Iman Heath, who is an activist and entrepreneur, and Lise Winnie, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast. Let me bring in Dr. Horne. And thank you again, Dr. Horne, for your time today. How are you this afternoon?
Hey, it's all good. How about you?
I'm good, Doc. I've been keeping up on the language. I'm a man about language and communication, Dr. Horn. And one of the big things that I'm seeing is that the language is getting a little bit, it went from diplomacy to now like two boys in a schoolyard. It's getting to that place, right? Biden throwing it out there that he said he thinks he's a war criminal. He's using the term thug. He's really painting a picture of Vladimir Putin being this kind of reckless, killing machine over there in Russia. But the White House is not fully embracing that title. But Moscow is. Moscow is saying, hey, this keeps happening. You keep using this type of language, we're going to have a bigger problem. What do we make of this, Doc?
I think what we make of it is we're reaching a very dangerous precipice that could easily tip into war between two nuclear powers, which, if taken to its logical extreme, could mean the extinction of all humanity. Now, I know that sounds terribly alarmist, but fundamentally, I think Moscow has reason to believe that the United States is interested in regime change, which is nothing new. The United States executed regime change in Iraq. We're marking the 19th anniversary as we speak with the execution of Saddam Hussein. The United States and its NATO allies executed the regime change in Libya in 2011, which resulted in the murder on camera of then leader Muammar Gaddafi. And so Moscow has reason to take these words very seriously, not least because a leading member of the United States Senate, speaking of the senior senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, has called for the assassination of Mr. Putin. I'm sure that that is taken quite seriously in the Kremlin. And I think it's going down a slippery slope because, as we know, Mr. Biden himself is headed to Warsaw, Poland, a stone's throw from the battlefield in Ukraine, when US officials begin talking about assassinating foreign leaders. I'm afraid to say that foreign leaders might decide that what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander.
Right.
So this is the law of the jungle, and obviously it cannot be countenanced.
And that puts us in a very precarious predicament, as they would say, Doc, because as much as the language is ramped up, we already talked about the sanctions, and on that side, it's hard for me to believe that the United States is not going to be pulled into this war militarily.
Well, basically right now, the fate of the planet may rest upon lawyers in Washington agreeing with lawyers in Moscow. The lawyers in Washington at the US State Department, they tell us that sending Javelin anti-tank missiles into Ukraine or Stinger missiles that can down aircraft, can down helicopters, sending machine guns, ammunitions, perhaps even sending fighter jets, that does not make the United States a co-belligerent or co-combatant under international law. Let us hope that their counterparts in Moscow agree with that interpretation of international law, because if they do not, the Kremlin might decide that the United States is a party to this conflict because of dumping this major arsenal into Ukraine, which would then make the US bases all around Russia, such as in Poland, where Mr. Biden is now visiting or will be visiting, would make those bases fair game. And that would open the gates of hell.
That would open the gates of hell. I the last time you were on here, you don't cut any cards in terms of the language of which is what we're seeing right now, Doc. What makes this particular moment, and especially this relationship between Russia and America, what makes this a more significant moment than what we saw with the beginning of the Cold War?
Well, recall that even during the Cold War, there were some tense moments. Recall October 1962, during the so-called Cuban Missile Crisis, when Moscow, the then Soviet Union, had placed defensive missiles on the island of Cuba in anticipation of a possible U.S. invasion. The Kremlin and the White House were eyeball to eyeball before a compromise was worked out. But at that particular tense moment, the world again was at the brink of nuclear destruction. And so, approximately 60 years later, we find ourselves again at the brink of nuclear destruction. Obviously, we need de-escalation and negotiation. But when you call your counterparty a murderous thug, a war criminal, and all the rest, it becomes difficult to work out an agreement with a person who you feel should actually be in an orange jumpsuit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the part about it. And there was an article that was recently ran in USA Today. They say that President Biden has been kind of preparing for this moment, like the America has been preparing for a possible showdown with Russia since the end of the Cold War, and people. And President Biden has been in there. I mean, of course, he's been in public service for so long. He knows the consequences, the ramifications. He knows the ins and outs of what it takes for America to go to war and what it takes for America to go to war with another superpower. So some people say that he's tepid, that he can have the tough talk, but the action behind it is still very tepid. What does this administration need to do to kind of get back to a place where this thing doesn't get out of control at this point?
Well, to repeat, we need de-escalation and negotiation. The president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has offered his good offices as a mediator between the two parties. The government of Turkey has offered its good offices as a mediator. I would recommend perhaps Cuba and China, because Cuba has good relations with both Ukraine and Russia, although it doesn't have very good relations with the United States of America, which is a party to this conflict. And then there's the People's Republic of China, because looming above everything else, it seems to me, is the reality that Beijing has decided to stand by its man, speaking of Vladimir Putin. And so there is a possibility that the United States might not only be taking on Russia, it might be taking on China as well. And that is more than a notion. I would hope that the hotheads in Washington come to realize that.
Yeah, I would hope so too. I would definitely hope so too. What about this this latest warning coming from the president, saying that that Russia is planning to use hypersonic missiles, and that two, American companies should be prepared for a cyber attack coming from Russia?
Well, there have been cyber attacks on both sides. As we know, the United States is a society that's heavily dependent upon the internet, not only with regard to financial transactions on Wall Street, but perhaps even the delivery of electricity as well. And it would not surprise me at all if there are plans on both sides to use cyber weapons. That obviously is quite dangerous and could be a precipitant for war. And one could say the same thing with regard to these hypersonic missiles, which my understanding is that these hypersonic missiles, which fly more rapidly and at a higher velocity than ordinary missiles, that Moscow has a more substantial arsenal of this particular technology than the United States does, which may be why we're hearing reports about Moscow already using hypersonic weapons. And we have not heard the same thing with regard to the United States and its NATO allies.
Yeah. I want to bring in our culture crew members, Iman Heath and Lise Winning, both who have been following this story and this whole scenario with me as well. Iman, Lise, sisters, thank y'all so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Lise, what do you take from as you listen to Dr. Horne and as we're seeing how this whole situation unfolds? It seems like the president is getting into a tight spot right now. Not trying to. He's got to walk the fine line of being responded to the scenario of what's happening with Russia. He's already put it out there. The United States is going to, defend its allies such as Ukraine. But then he also is dealing with the other scenario that he has to assure the American people that, that there won't be any type of military action at this point. So what do you see so far?
Well, first of all, I think I want to buy a bunker. Like, do they sell those at Walmart? Because I'm not sure if we're in a good place. But I think that one of the things that I took away from this is I don't believe that either side really wants it to come to the nuclear side of war, but we do have to pay the realization that both sides have the capability in order to do so. Now, from what I've been hearing, I don't know how long Russia can keep this up financially. So I think that some ways that there is a little bit reprieve there. But we also saw that back in, maybe the doctor can explain this a little bit better. Back in 2008, I think didn't the George Bush administration do some antagonizing that the Democrats accused him of antagonizing Vladimir Putin? So I think we've seen this before. I'm very cautious about saying that it's getting to that point of going into a nuclear where we should be afraid or worried. But it is definitely something to be cognizant about. And it seems to be changing day by day. And unfortunately, the rhetoric here is getting worse and not better. And we're not going in a positive direction.
Yeah. And along with the rhetoric, Iman, is the fact that the narrative around this conflict is changing. At first, it was like, oh, the poor people of Ukraine. Now you have this other narrative, and I'm certainly want to get your take on this as well, Dr. Horn. But Iman, when we look at this narrative, that Black people are starting to say, wait a minute, hold up. This might not be our war.
I'll definitely say I'm on that side. Like, we didn't sign up for this. Us didn't sign up for this. We didn't ask for this. And it seems as though this is turning into a pissing match. Who can stick their chest out, the best. Biden said Putin didn't have a soul, and he harps on how he says he didn't have a soul, and he told him off, but it's beyond words now. And a certain word you cannot use that will frighten American citizens, given the history of what we've been through, at least as long as I've been alive. 9/11 and saying certain words is still a trigger for some Americans when it comes to these type of issues. So he has to be clear and okay with his vocabulary. But yeah, us Black folk, we ain't asked for this. We didn't sign up for this. We simply wanted you, Biden, to lead us into a better situation than what Trump had us going. But it's starting to look like we're looking at the same person when it comes to the vocabulary. Just throwing out words because you feel this way, or throwing out words to make us feel as though you're this big bad bully. No, it is not going to work. We didn't sign up for this.
We didn't sign up for this. Dr. Horn, how do we, as Black folks in this country, we're seeing all of these reports, not just with Africans trying to leave Ukraine. Yeah, that's one thing. But now I'm starting to see more conversations about the impact that that this conflict has on Africa, the continent of Africa, bringing hunger strikes, stopping the supply, the export of wheat is going to be impacted. So now Black folks, we're kind of put in this position like, wait a minute, our hearts were with Ukraine, but now we're starting to learn that Ukraine hasn't always had their heart with Black people in this country or from the motherland. So where do we fit in all of this?
Well, I think the points are well taken that have been made thus far. I mean, keep in mind that despite the fact that you still have the door shut on African refugees who are streaming into Europe, with regard to Ukrainian refugees that are streaming into Western Europe, Airbnb has accorded them thousands of places to live. In Britain, families can get £350 per night, or per resident for taking in one of these refugees. With regard to Africa, we see that already in Egypt, there is unrest because wheat disproportionately comes from the Ukraine and Russian agricultural fields. That's been stymied thus far. That has also led not only to unrest, but a certain amount of inflation as well, because keep in mind that the price of a barrel of oil is going up, which is obviously hitting us here in the United States. With regard to California, the price of a gallon of gasoline creeping to $6-7 per gallon. And even with regard to food insecurity, you have millions of people in the United States who rely upon food stamps, and the price of food is going to be going up as well. So Mr. Biden apparently has stumbled into a major crisis, and I hope that his advisors help him to escape this crisis.
And when we say help to escape the crisis, I mean, at this point, and I'm trying to understand it, Russia, Dr. Horn, is still advancing to the capital. Casualties are getting higher and higher, whether they're from the military side or the civilian side. You got all these sanctions that are on Russia, and Russia is pretty much being isolated away from the global community. And then Ukraine, I'm reading some reports where the Ukrainians are saying, you know what? When we get a moment, we're gonna get our revenge on Russia. I just don't see a clear path to get out of this situation anytime soon. Going back to the Cold War piece as well, let's throw this in the mix, that countries, governments are preparing for a long, protracted war, might be a Cold War 2.0 over these next couple of months. They don't see that this thing is going to be wrapped up quickly. And the way things are going daily, it looks like the relationship that America has with all the stakeholders in this situation is going to change. So I don't see a clear path at this point.
Well, I would say that we know what triggered in the first instance this crisis was Ukraine's willingness, seemingly, to enter the North Atlantic Treaty Organization led by the United States, which is perceived in the Kremlin as being anti-Moscow. Of late, President Zelensky of the Ukraine has suggested that he was told all along that NATO would not be willing to accept Ukraine, but they were just putting that out there in a way to sort of intimidate Russia, for example. Well, you see where this intimidation has gotten them. So it seems to me that this crisis could be negotiated. First, by putting in writing that Ukraine will not enter NATO. Secondly, by having those regions in eastern Ukraine that have a significant number of Russian speakers have some sort of influence in the government of Kiev, where they do not have influence to the degree that is warranted at the moment. I think that the problem is that whenever there is movement towards some sort of negotiated settlement, hotheads in Washington oftentimes pour cold water on that movement because they see tying up Moscow, weakening Moscow as being strategically significant. And I think they also have China in the crosshairs as well. And they would like to weaken China at the same time that they weaken Moscow. So in other words, this crisis has gone far beyond the immediate point of whether or not Ukraine enters NATO or not.
Right. Far beyond. I got to throw this out there because this just came in from CNN. They just had an exclusive interview with the spokesman for President Vladimir Putin. And he concedes that Russia hasn't yet achieved its aims in Ukraine and says Russia could use nuclear weapons if it faced existential threat. Now, you know what? You know, Dr. Horn and Iman and Lise, you know, I've seen how fights go down. There's a lot of talk and everybody wants to know how big they really are in the fight. I'm just wondering, to me, I know they're not thinking that this is a game. My
question is, what do they take as what did you say? It was exponential what? What was the threat?
Existential threat.
What does that look like for them? What does that look like for you? If Biden says something one more time, then it's, nuclear bombs. Is it if you cut another piece of our supply of whatever it may be, that's a threat? Like, what does that look like for them is my question.
I do have a question, I guess, for the doctor, because with this type of rhetoric, this is not a popular war. You talk about Black people, but it's not even a popular war in Russia. Like, this is not something that the people of Russia want. How possible is it, if he starts talking more about nuclear war, that there could be a revolution? Like, they've had one in the past. Of course, it was quite very, very long ago. But how likely is it for the people to maybe rise up against their own government in Russia?
Well, according to polls, what Mr. Putin and what the Kremlin is executing on the battlefield is not necessarily unpopular. It is unpopular amongst many of the oligarchs, the billionaires who are having their property confiscated in London and elsewhere. So I would not put a wager on there being a popular uprising against Mr. Putin, although obviously that's what sanctions that the United States has imposed are designed to effectuate. What we also need to realize is that even if neither party wants war, the history of conflict shows that wars can happen by accident. You have parties sleepwalk into war. That's what happened during World War I, for example, 1914 to 1918. It was sleepwalking. And that's the danger right now, that this situation could easily spin out of control and we could wind up with the kind of disaster that we have not seen on planet Earth since August 1945, when the United States dropped nuclear weapons on Japan, basically exterminating tens of thousands of people in one fell swoop.
Dr. Horn, I want to ask this question because as I'm looking at what CNN is reporting from their exclusive interview with Russian spokesman Dmitry Peskov, one of the things that when he was asked, well, what has President Putin thought he had achieved in the Ukraine so far? And the spokesperson said he hasn't achieved yet. He hasn't achieved. I mean, not even considering all the damage that's been done, the civilians that have died, he hasn't achieved yet. And the spokesperson went on to say that the invasion was going on strictly in accordance with the plans and the purposes that were established beforehand. So what does that mean to you, Dr. Horn? Does that mean that if they haven't achieved what they wanted to achieve, does that mean that since they haven't captured the capital, that's the big achievement? Or since they haven't captured Zelensky and dealt with him, is that one of you think that's a marker of achievement for them?
Well, recall that on February 24th, 2022, when President Putin announced what he called a special military operation, he put in the forefront this idea of, quote, denazification, unquote, of the Ukrainian military forces. It's no secret that you have within the Ukrainian military forces ultra-rightists who had been targeting and indeed terrorizing many Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine. And those forces are still on the battlefield. That's one of the reasons why you still have this conflict in southern Ukraine, while we're about to face an even larger conflict, I'm afraid to say, in Odessa, one of the major cities in Ukraine. I think that is what's underpinning and undergirding what Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, was alluding to.
You know what, Dr. Horn, we're going to have to bring you back because this thing it seems like just when you thought, okay, maybe we're at a lull, somebody says something and then it kicks off again. I'm telling you, it's fascinating. It's interesting, but at the same time, it's like, this could potentially be a scary situation. And I really do hope that, like you mentioned earlier today, Doc, that the hotheads find a cool way to make some decisions, because the last thing we need, and the last thing, I'm going to just put it out there, I'm putting out there every single day we talk about this. We don't want to go to war. We're not fighting in this war. We're not fighting for this. You know what I mean? You've lied to us in the past about going to war. We've embraced the lie. We went to war and we came back and body bagged. This one, we're not fighting for this one. And I know people, I know as it gets closer to that when the rhetoric is so high that something has to be done, I know that those things are going to be taken into account for. But I'm just saying, Dr. Horn, we're not fighting for this war. I'm telling you, this is not a war. And I'm saying black people, nor white people, Latino people. I don't think anybody really wants a war with Russia or war with that part of the world and then think it doesn't affect us here in this part of the world. If they think that they just don't understand how it's the connectedness between the global community, because everything that happens over there is only a stone throw away from what can possibly happen here. I know that.
You are absolutely correct. And I would like to co-sign your anti-war statements because, let's face it, our community is probably in a position to lose more than other communities if a war does take place, because it'll make for a major hit on the U.S. Treasury, which means a cut in food stamps, which means a rise in gasoline taxes, which means in healthcare as well. So we don't need to go down that road.
Absolutely not. Dr. Gerald Horne, Morris Professor of History at the University of Houston. Dr. Horne, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you once again for being a part of the conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about the confirmation hearings, day 2 of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. We'll be checking in with law professor Najiri Mathis Rutledge to give us her insight about what's happening in the hearing, and of course get the insight from our culture crew. Stay with us. A lot to come at you for the second 30 of the culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, we want to bring you up to date on the second day of the confirmation hearings of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Judge Jackson, as we speak, is in the middle of a hearing. We just had I want to show you a little bit, because we're going to have a conversation with USA Today columnist and law professor, Professor Najiri Mathis Rutledge, to give us some insight about what she's seeing so far in this confirmation hearing, as she was able to attend the hearing yesterday, and also just in general, looking at this whole scenario of bringing Judge Jackson to the Supreme Court and how both Republicans and Democrats have responded. But I want to just jump in, and I just want you to hear a little bit of what is being said and what's being discussed at today's confirmation hearing for Judge Jackson. Take a look.
There's really nothing unusual or special about it from your perspective.
That is correct.
For those of us up here, there was a lot special and important about it. It was a highly charged partisan and political issue, but you looked at the statute, you found persuasive precedent, you applied it, you went on to the next case. Well, let me ask about another decision. In a case addressing another very politically charged issue, and specifically this involves the emails of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Now, the Republican National Committee, or the RNC, is opposing your nomination, publicly accusing you of being a partisan Democrat. And they argue you could not possibly be an impartial justice. But ironically, back in 2016, you presided over a case brought by the RNC against USAID related to then presidential candidate Clinton, and you ruled in favor of the RNC. Both the substance and the timing of the case are really quite striking.
I did.
The RNC made Freedom of Information Act requests for certain emails involving the former secretary. And despite what the RNC would have us now believe, in this case, you reinforced your deserved reputation for following the law, not a partisan agenda, because you ordered USA
and folks,
Secretary Clinton.
We wanted to bring you just a little bit of the excerpt. And this is happening right now, folks. This is live from the confirmation hearing of Judge Jackson. And as you can imagine, the level of scrutiny of each and every decision that Judge Jackson has made is being discussed and reviewed thoroughly to ensure that she is serious about constitutional law, to see where her allegiance lies. All of those things are being determined. I want to bring in law professor, Professor Najiri Mathis Rutledge. She's a columnist for USA Today, and she wrote this piece, which I think was fascinating, which is why we invited her to be a part of this conversation. She wrote this piece called "It's Exhausting to Be a Black Woman," just asked Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson. And she started this off, and I love the way she started it off. She said, "I am exhausted. I am exhausted. I am not exhausted because I am doing too much or working too hard. I am exhausted because the constant double standard placed on me and other talented Black women is an exhausting burden." Let's bring Professor Rutledge to the conversation at this time. Professor, I'm exhausted too. First and foremost, how are you? I'm exhausted too.
I am exhausted. This is the second day of hearings for me. I was fortunate enough to secure a ticket. And yes, I'm very tired, but my heart is full because it's such an important time in our life.
You mentioned quite a number of things in your piece, and I'm gonna just raise just a little bit, and then we're gonna bring some other dynamic sisters in it, because I can't have this conversation. I could be the only guy, but I needed to have this conversation with some dynamic women. But you raised a couple of things. One being her qualifications. And this is something that I mentioned yesterday, because I did not know this until you brought it up. You said Judge Jackson authored more than 550 opinions during her tenure as a district court judge and was reversed only 11 times, which is a 2% reversal rate. That impressive statistic has not stopped conservatives from falsely claiming she was reversed at a high rate. For those who don't understand that piece of data, that statistic, 550 opinions, 2% reversal rate. You're a law professor. Break that down for us like we fifth grade. What does that actually mean?
It means that she is a very respected jurist, because the district court level is the trial court level. And many times when a ruling is made, the losing party is upset and decides to appeal to a higher court. And that would be the DC Circuit Court, where Judge Jackson is currently a judge. At the DC Circuit Court, she was rarely reversed. I think there was only one other judge. So she would be one of the least likely people to be reversed on appeal. And so that just goes to her breadth of understanding about the rule of law and her commitment to the Constitution.
So that means that when she ruled on something, pretty much people trusted her judgment enough. And I'm saying from both sides, said, you know what, that was a fair ruling. Like, okay, we can accept that.
Yes. So when the appellate court rules, they're guided by principles of standard of review. And sometimes they have to be deferential to the trial court. Sometimes they get to start over from scratch. And in the vast majority of cases, they found she was right on the money.
Vast majority of cases, she was right on the money. So you said a couple of things, and I want to bring my culture crew members, Iman, Heath, Lise Winnie, into this part of the conversation, because throughout your op-ed here, Professor, you bringing up the fact that, look, it's like Black women, you reach a goal, then the goalpost is moved. You reach another goal, you work harder, the goalpost is moved. You even put in your personal experience of how a white student, now here you are teaching about law, and you said that a white student approached you and asked you the question, well, what qualifies you to teach us?
Oh, it was even worse. She asked me in the middle of class. She raised her hand in class and asked me that question.
Wow.
May I know what you said, Professor? May I know what you said? What was your response?
Well, I didn't say what I wanted to say.
I'm sure you didn't.
It's an interesting dynamic when you're a professor, because you're in a position of power. And sometimes when you dress down a student too harshly, it backfires on you. So you have to be very careful. So even though she may have deserved to be dressed down, if I had done that, then there would have been other students who have rallied to her and said I was being too mean and too harsh. So I decided the easiest way is just to let them know what my qualifications are. I'm proud of my qualifications. I didn't have a problem with it. But I did note that was a bold question to ask, and I'm quite sure she's never asked that. And I'm pretty sure none of my colleagues have ever been questioned that way before either.
Yeah. So when Tucker Carlson did that, when he said, well, we need to look at Judge Jackson's LSAT scores, and I shared with them like the day or a couple of days after that, we went through it right here on the show, and I was like, the LSAT scores, out of all test scores to be an attorney, you look at the LSAT scores, really? Like, dude, you don't even have a law certificate, let alone a law degree. Right. But when he did that opened up this idea that Black women essentially aren't qualified.
Absolutely. I believe when Mr. Carlson made that statement, he wasn't just taking a swing at Judge Jackson, he was taking a swing at all Black women. Because I think for some people, we will never be good enough. Now, as a law professor who served on admissions, of course, the LSAT is just a timed logic test exam to see how you will perform in law school. Right. So one of the reasons it's so ludicrous is that we already know how she performed in law school. She graduated with honors, made it on the law review. And so, but I think what was most outrageous, he never curved his lips to ask this of Justice Barrett. And I'm not aware of any justice that they've asked something so outlandish. And the truth is, Judge Jackson is brilliant. I have no doubt she did great on the LSAT. But even if she had submitted that, there would always be something else. Just like President Obama and the birth certificate, it's never enough.
I want to bring Lisa. I want to get your take on this. When we're looking at Black women not being good enough, and you're talking about the highest court in the United States. I mean, she's breaking. If she were to be confirmed, she would be breaking all types of glass ceilings, and as my culture crew member yesterday say, black ceilings as well. So what's your take on how things are moving forward for day 2, and more importantly, where you stand on Black women not being good enough?
I'm appalled, to be quite frank with you. When you look at the way Lindsey Graham, he asked her about religion, like it doesn't make any sense about how they're going about this. The Republicans are going about this. When you look at how Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed so quickly, and her qualifications compared to Miss Brown Jackson. And this is, again, when you look at Black people, especially Black women, not only is she Black, she's also a woman. So she's constantly has to prove that she's competent before it is assumed, where a white man can walk in any room and it is assumed that he is competent until proven otherwise. And this is so frustrating as a Black woman, to constantly have this uphill battle to be able to have to prove that you can do the same thing. And this is unfortunate that she is I would say almost to the point of being overly qualified. When you look at her record, she's went to Harvard. She's a double Harvard grad, if I'm not mistaken. And she is when you look at everything that she's accomplished, and then the hypocrisy of Lindsey Graham, who, when she was nominated to the U.S. District Court, he was okay. And then now it's like a complete reversal. And you can see that this is only about race.
Well, first and foremost, you can expect reversal from Lindsey, flip-flop, or Graham. I mean, he flips. I'm serious. You look at his record, he flips from flops more than a pair of shoes. So, I'm not even tripping about that. But I think, to your point, you're absolutely right. And Professor, you said that in your piece, that she is. Let me make sure I'm looking at it correctly. You mentioned the point that she actually has better credentials than 4 other justices that currently sit on the Supreme Court right now.
Combined. More so than Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Thomas, Justice, I think the other one was Kavanaugh and Barrett. More judicial, maybe it wasn't Kavanaugh. I don't remember the 4th one, but more judicial experience than they have combined. She's been a judge for almost a decade. That is such valuable experience. So not only does she have the traditional credentials that we would expect from a Supreme Court justice of the double Ivy degree, the law review, the public service, the big law firm, but she's also been a public defender. She's also been vice chair of the Sentencing Commission. She's also received bipartisan support from the Senate on 3 different confirmation hearings. So this is a fantastic, phenomenal candidate. I think the problem is, because I sat in the hearings for 2 days now, we're seeing a lot of political grandstanding. We're seeing a lot of theater. We're seeing a preview of what the midterms are going to look like. And it's really unfortunate because they're not getting a chance to really know who Judge Jackson is.
See, and that's the other part about this, Professor, and then Iman, I want to get your take on this. The big part about this is, do you think that this confirmation hearing will be able to get past the symbolism of what Judge Jackson represents? Do you think they will get past this? The obvious, she's Black and she's a woman. You think that they will get past to get to the meat for the American people to make their own assessment of her qualifications, her experience, and what she could possibly do on the bench? I feel like we were, before the show started, I saw a little bit of the back and forth that Judge Jackson had with Ted Cruz. And he was talking about her comments from critical race theory from 2015. And it was like, bruh, you talking about something, trying to make a comment. And she said it. She said, you didn't give me the full context of the quote. So you take a little piece to try to fit your agenda because everybody's talking about critical race theory, and then you go trying to set her up to seem like she's so biased and so partisan. But she said, I was saying that in terms of legislation and not anything else. So I'm wondering, can we get past that? Do you think that the Senate will be able to get past the symbolism to get to the substance? Professor, you can't hear you? Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was for me.
No problem.
I thought that was for one of the other.
Oh, no problem. Yes, ma'am. We're going to get to you, Mom. I want to get your take on it first.
I think it's like a ping pong match, honestly. I think that we have Republicans with their agenda and their false narrative that they're trying to create of Judge Jackson. And then Democrats get up and they try to combat that false narrative. But in terms of actually getting to know who Judge Jackson is, I hope that the American people are smart enough to think for themselves, to read her opinions, to read her judicial questionnaire. All of it is available online. So instead of having other people think for you and listening to these sound bites about she's soft on crime and she defends terrorists, take the time to read the decisions. I can tell you from knowing Judge Jackson personally that she is a woman of high integrity. She is brilliant, she is kind, she is down to earth, and she takes her oath to protect the Constitution and the rule of law very, very seriously.
Iman, what's your take? You on mute?
I'm always on mute. The biggest concern I would say that I think is what won't get us to break those glass ceilings again is wanting to keep women and Black women in that box. Number one, she's darker skinned, she has locks, and she's a woman. That is one hell of an image that a lot of Americans, especially in our government, do not want to see. I hope this gets the ball rolling as far as making the changes of different faces and different people to be able to get to those heights of such a prestige position. And I didn't know she was a public defender before. Why wouldn't we want somebody who has been at those local levels, who have been with the people, rather than someone, like you said, she's already overqualified. So why not have her? Why not her? Because of her exact image. It's way too much to give these little Black children the hopes and idea that it can get as far as where she has gotten. Because again, it's because of her image. I sincerely believe if she looked different, we all know it wouldn't be no day 2 of no confirmation hearings. It wouldn't be day 2. But this is the push we need. This is the start that we need. This is a good beginning.
Len, I want to raise another quote that you put in your op-ed, Professor. And Keen, if you throw that I guess quote 2 up on the screen, it would make more sense for some to claim that they disagree with her judicial philosophy. This is what you said, Professor. It would make more sense for some to claim that they disagree with her judicial philosophy. Sadly, that would not be as satisfying as trying to attack the character and intelligence of a Black woman who is also a sitting federal judge and has received congressional approval on 3 separate occasions. I have to say, I am in total agreement with you, Professor, but that's too much like right in modern day 2022 America, right? That we look at a person beyond their skin, beyond gender, to see the quality, to see the eligibility, to see their work, right? To see their thinking. But that is too much like right, Professor. That I don't think that's going to happen. Now, I think she's going to get confirmed because I think her record is strong enough, but there's still going to be some quote unquote some created clouds of doubt and suspicion by lawmakers to make her seem like her judicial philosophy is just not on point or it's not in tune with the American people.
Absolutely. I remember being in the hearings at the end of Senator Blackburn from Tennessee, her offensive comments, where she literally asked whether or not Judge Jackson had an agenda, a hidden agenda.
Wow.
And so it's very troubling and offensive to paint a federal judge in this light. When we're talking about the legitimacy of the Supreme Court and the legitimacy of the court system, when you have a judge who not only has been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, not only has been confirmed by the Senate on 3 separate occasions, but is a current judge, they deserve some modicum of respect that they are actually invested in the Constitution. Yeah. And so the smear campaign to try to somehow merge her with pedophiles and child abusers and soft on crime is really, really offensive.
It is offensive. And I'm wondering at this point, I mean, we're in day 2. This is a 4-day confirmation hearing. Can the American people do? What can the American people do, or what can Black America do or what can women do? What can be done on our side of things to see that this goes through properly, successfully, and most importantly, to show that the American people are in support of this big historic move?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, if you're people of faith, I would tell you, first of all, to cover her in prayer. This is very hard to keep a poker face, and I'm so proud of her. There were times when I've heard senators question her, and I was just furious. And she has handled it all with grace and eloquence. Second of all, call your senators. We want a fair and expeditious hearing. And so far, the smear campaign is not my definition of fairness. This is not a time to play politics or pay back for what happened with Kavanaugh or Bork or anybody else. This is about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. And besides that, there are wonderful grassroots organizations, Win with Black Women, She Will Rise, Sister SCOTUS, the collective of Black women who are organizing at this very moment to make sure that we hold people accountable. If you're a writer, write op-eds. When you see something wrong or offensive, you make sure you speak up and don't just let it go as business as usual. We have to protect and defend when they're on the wrong. Now, if Judge Jackson was doing something inappropriate, that'd be different. But I know her and I know her character. And so she deserves our full support.
And my final question would be that if all goes well, she is confirmed, how do we make sure that she stays accountable? We had a conversation yesterday saying that, yes, we know time and time again, we get Black faces into high places and then they forget in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not saying that that's the way she is. I'm just looking at past history. How do we make sure that when those big decisions come down, that she's going to rule in the best interest of Black America just as much as she ruled in the interest of America?
That's not her job to rule in the interest of anything but the Constitution and the rule of law, first of all.
Gotcha.
Second of all, the best way to shorthand Judge Jackson, if you've ever watched A Different World, there have been a few people who have tried to compare me to Whitley. She is Kimberly Reese. She is loyal. She knows who she is. She embraces her culture. She is a good friend. She is kind. She is all those people. We are not getting another Justice Clarence Thomas. We are getting Ketanji Brown Jackson, who knows who she is, who's proud of who she is, who has referenced Constable Baker Motley, who has referenced the ancestors even today and the shoulders that she is standing on. So I have no doubt that she's going to make us very, very proud.
I'm all for it. Professor, you know we're gonna have to bring you back at some point because I know this situation.
Tell her that Ketanji, she can call me. I'll be her anger translator. You know, like Obama had one. I got her.
Professor Najeri Mathis Rutledge. She's a law professor, columnist for USA Today. Professor, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for this conversation. And you are absolutely right. She is more than qualified. She is enough. And we're going to continue to show our love and support for our sisters. So thank you, Professor, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's switch gears. Let's talk about how we can normalize Black excellence, and Black achievement with Dr. Marco Clark. Stay riding with us. It's The Culture here, only exclusively on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome to the second hour of today's show. Wow, just a very, very powerful first hour as we talk to Dr. Horn about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, to Professor Najiri Mathis Rutledge about the confirmation hearings of Judge Ketanji Jackson. And now we want to switch gears to discuss education right now, because we know that as much as we have been talking about everything from politics to social justice, education still remains to be the key to success, especially for Black America. And I wanted to have a discussion with my culture crew and with our next guest to talk about how we can normalize Black excellence and achievement. Now, let me just share something very quickly with you. There was a piece that was written for the New York Daily News by Mr. Eric Smith. And Eric is a Black man, and he asked the question, do we get too excited about Black Americans first? Okay. Now, one of the things he talked about, of course, he talked about Judge Jackson being confirmed. He talked about Lloyd Austin being appointed to lead the Department of Defense. He talked about Eric Adams, the new Black mayor of New York City. But he said, as a Black man, he said, as a Black man, I get it. I want the achievements to be markers of competence and real distinction, but my ultimate desire is to normalize the very idea of Black excellence and have high achievement among Blacks to be as normal as rain and apple pie. Can we normalize the idea of Black excellence and Black achievement, especially when it comes to the classroom? I want to bring our very special guest in, Dr. Marco Clark. Dr. Clark serves as the CEO of the Richard Wright Public Charter School in Washington, D.C. He is an author, he is a public speaker, and he has been labeled to be America's toughest principal. We want to welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network, Dr. Marco Clark. Dr. Clark, how are you this afternoon?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. Yeah, you do sound like a tough principal. To have you on. Dr. Clark, when we look at what I just shared from Mr. Eric here from the New York Daily News, this discussing normalizing Black excellence, normalizing Black achievement, especially in the classroom. What does that look like? And where did we start? Because in 2022, we're still having first. We're still in the place of being the first. And it's mind-blowing to me that we're in this place, especially given the fact that we have all of this new technology, we have all of these resources, we have all this opportunity, especially in the classroom. And yet when people are becoming the first, that's praised and then the rest of it is kind of goes to the side. Can you help us to understand and navigate through these dynamics?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And, this is a topic that is near and dear to me. It's such a shame to be in 2022 and be the first of so many different things when Blacks have been achievers of everything throughout history. And so normalizing what education is right now in 2022 is first of all, it shouldn't be something that's amazing. I think we're classifying it as an amazing feat that Blacks are that we're finally getting a first female Supreme Court justice that's going to be up for this, that we are the first to have a Black president back in 2008. It shouldn't be normalized, and we shouldn't get so excited about the first individual. Rather, we should think that this should be a normal play that we should continue on. Every time a door opens, it shouldn't just be one person and then we get excited about it and then walk away, and then we never know when the next first is going to happen. Well, it should be something that we decide that we're going to get together and line up and make sure that if you got one, then it should be two. And if it's two, it should be four. And if it's four, it should be six. Educating in this society now is a must. That's why the excitement around HBCUs has come back to play, because we're recognizing that African-American people are brilliant. And it's time, and I'm glad that the world is waking up, but I'm still having a pause there, because is what is being projected in the community, is it sound, or is it being used for dollars to attract others to make money off of us? And this is something that we have to make sure that we are not becoming bamboozled by the propaganda. I just saw a ad by Ralph Lauren Polo the other day that has a bridge that's being built with Morehouse College and Spelman College, and people are so excited about it. But I can remember back in the 80s, there were articles around the fact that Ralph Lauren and other name brands did not want African-American people wearing their clothing.
Yep,
so why are we normalizing it as something that's great? Instead of looking at that, we belong. We should be in this. This should be something we are talking about, because we are responsible for many of the millionaires and billionaires that's taking place, because we are their consumers, we're their designers, we're the fad and the trend setters, we're the ones that's creating this opportunity, and yet we get so excited when you see one of us being broadcast. It's such a shame, and we have to get out of that and understand excellence has always been that in the Black community.
So it sounds like it's and I applaud you for saying that, because I think you're absolutely on point, Doc. So it sounds like there are a couple of things that have to take place. That one, and this is what was written in the piece, that there is this high level of celebration for Black excellence, because we're looking through the lens of white supremacy. We're looking through the lens of white people who are, when you're talking about media or any other endeavor, sports or your politics, that we're looking through their lens, and so they're seeing us as being, oh wow, I didn't know this existed, considering all of the challenges that this community faces, right? But then for us, we have embraced that same type of perspective and viewpoint, and we start to celebrate, not really understanding that, like you said, it's always been present. So it seems like white America has to make some changes, but then also Black America, we have to make some changes on how we see each other.
When we look at this, and me being a Black male that is the founder of charter schools in the nation's capital, when I'm out meeting with individuals, they are always surprised. I must say it 4, 5, 10 times within a conversation of a room that I'm actually the person that is the head one in charge. The reality is that most individuals are still looking through the lens that how could I create such a network and have a team of professionals who are working to benefit children that look just like us, and yet they're still looking for, who am I working for? Who am I under? Who's designing it? Is it? And it's not just the other races. It is within our own race that we're looking, and folks are saying, oh, really? This is just amazing. How did this happen? Well, history has told us from the past that we recognize that we have always had the desire. We created our own schools. We created, when no one else gave us an opportunity, we were teaching our own communities. We were making sure that they were learning at home, in the community, at church, that we were a part of building these building blocks across the board. So the problem is that we have to go back to understanding that we're going to have to teach history in our community so that our young people will understand that this is normal behavior.
Absolutely. I want to bring back Culture Crew members Iman Heath, Lise Winnie. Iman, when you I know you are just bubbling with excitement hearing Dr. Clark speak right now.
Listen, I'm trying to be calm. Go ahead.
What's your take on this? The fact that we have a problem with normalizing Black excellence and Black achievement.
Absolutely, because of our knowledge, our lack of knowing our history. We've started a lot of things. We invented a lot of things. It's to the point where we just weren't able to actually have it patent back then when we during Jim Crow days and all of those. But moving forward, we have to teach. Like, a lot of young people don't know. We've been astronauts. Women specifically, we've been astronauts. We've done that. We've been the first of that. We've been the first to create numerous amount of things. It's just to teach our history, our education. We don't know. I'm sure if we knew, a lot of our children would be more motivated to be and do other things other than, like I've said before, play sports. We've kicked down the barriers. We've kicked down the doors. It's going to take a while for this to become something normal to us, but we have to start with teaching, and that will get the ball rolling. We have to know our history and what we've already done.
And then that's one of the things, Dr. Clark, that when we look at how education has evolved over the years, and I'm talking about education for Black students. It was also going back to this piece from the New York Daily Post, and the writer said, regarding education, the Black rate of academic achievement has improved since the Civil Rights Movement, but not by much, definitely not enough to correlate it with today's more visible instances of Black achievement. So when we look at the fact that we are making some gains in the educational space for Black students, but it's still not enough. And I think that's the other part about this, that Black achievement is still moving forward in spite of the slow progress of our educational system. Can you speak to that?
It's a shame that is the case, and that we are still moving forward at a snail's rate rather than with the swiftness of a shark. Because the reality is that we understand that education is always the great equalizer. And when we look at the civil rights movements and the movements of the 70s with affirmative action, what happened is that Black people understood that education was the bridge builder to everything you wanted to do. But then we hit those magnificent 80s where we began to see trinkets of things because other cultures recognized that we would be the ones that would run after the shining shining symbols that would actually make us feel good or look shiny enough that we could show off. And we started to forget about the actual bridge that got us there. And it was about becoming educated. We read, we understood laws, we understood that we had to connect with each other, that we had to know what politically was going on so that we could galvanize communities to make change. And we stopped that in the 1980s. And now you're seeing the slow progress of what has taken place based on the fact that we forgot from which we've come. And now we've gotten to a place where, we're saying, well, I don't know if I need education. In 2022, you have some African-American students that are saying, hey, I'm not sure I want to go to college. I'm not sure college is for me. The reality is that it may not be for you, but getting the degree itself and having that in your hip pocket, having an extra plan is something that was always part of our history, and we've forgotten that. And this is how we got to move forward to understand that is a necessity.
But is that and do we do that because if a child is saying, look, I don't think I don't need education because I can just graduate from high school and become a YouTube star and an influencer or a social media influencer, and I'm getting money. Matter of fact, I'm getting more money than my parents did. so therefore I'm good. So what happens there? Is it about society, or something else needs to kind of jump in to interrupt that process?
Well, you know, we're going to have to teach our young people to understand that they, you know, as I was growing up, they said we can teach you how to get short money or long money. Which one you want? And when we look at those individuals who are focusing on becoming YouTubers and those social media glitz, it's not even always about the money. It's just about the fame and them being able to have enough followers. So the reality is what happens to you when you turn 30 and you're no longer a YouTuber or a person that's on social media? Then your fan base has dropped. How are you going to eat? And part of what we have to do is stop keeping a cover over our young people and let them understand what's really happening. Take the blankets off of their eyes and let them understand that if we don't tell them that eventually, if you don't focus on something in your 20s, by the time you get to your 30s, you'll be hungry. And hungry won't let you make up the time that you miss by trying to shoot out for a dream that may not be realistic. And so when we look at these YouTubers, many of them are trying to do that, but how many are actually getting paid for the stupidity that they're putting out there and dragging themselves down? Because remember, social media is never going anywhere. And when they wake up and realize what exactly they want to do, it's going to be too late, and folks will be able to go back and play the videos that they'll be sorry that they ever made.
Ooh, Lise. I can see why they call Dr. Clark America's toughest principal. My God, that was a tough pill to swallow there, right there, Lise. What's your take?
I agree. I think that education definitely is always a pillar of the Black community, or should be. It's where we were able to take ourselves from where we were to really being able to get civil rights, exactly of what he said. I think the only thing that I kind of get concerned when we start using this language, because even when you look back in history, when you start looking at who was in the civil rights movement, it was always usually the upper echelon or the elite Black people. And sometimes what I don't want to happen is that people get erased. So when you talk about education is great, but again, maybe some people a trade. Somebody's got to do that. And I don't think that it's anything wrong with being able to acknowledge that as well, that using your hand is a level of intelligence. It can be a level of excellence as well. So when we use those terms, sometimes my only fear is that some people get erased out of that because of what some people consider to be Black excellence versus what is not. So I think that's where I kind of stand with that.
You know, I believe that education is in every variable that allows you to make an honest living, because without my barber, I would go crazy. I need my barber to show up, and I need those individuals who can do trades with their hands. That is a part of being educated, in my opinion. Education is not just coming in and being an educator in the building, but rather whatever opportunities you can build that will uplift a community. And so we do need trades. We need individuals who can build homes, who can actually do plumbing, who can do all of the trades that we need to survive, because that was a part of the African-American community. Those individuals built the bridges that helped us get exactly where we are. Factory workers changed everything. So being educated to me means that you are acquiring a skill. It means that you are being able to become certificated and certified in an area that you can make a positive, a positive response to your community that you serve and live, and make sure that that has some positive influence on those that come behind you.
Absolutely. Let me just share just a couple of the comments that we're getting from our watchers right now, Dr. Clark. Nicole says, we as Black people come from a continent, Africa, of geniuses, brilliance, innovators, creators, cultural excellence, and wealth. So she's saying that we come from that. So it should not be a surprise that we are exemplifying and that we're demonstrating that. Young mom, it says, even if you are an influencer, you need your degrees to legitimize your business. If you write a book, teach a class, travel, and sell advice, it legitimizes you to say Dr. So and so. I totally agree. Is there concern by you, Dr. Clark, that the way that because education is becoming more and more less Black, for lack of a better word, right? That it will deter Black students from wanting to be excellent to wanting to go the extra route and to go further along. Is that a concern for you right now?
It's not a concern for me because I think we have enough pillars in the community to change this thing around. I think what is happening is that we're having to press upon the fact why education is so important in whatever field you go in, why we need you there. We must have our face represented in the place. And I'm not talking about those who are just there. I'm talking about those who are really there to do the work, that our faces are in the mix and that we are making a change. It does not scare me because it is just one more challenge. For me, I feel like my mission is always greater than the challenges that are before me to accomplish that mission. So if I keep that in the forefront, I'm always going to achieve. And I think we're at a great point in time now where we're seeing the good, the bad, the ugly, and the ugliest you've ever seen that is showing up in our world now. And I think this is the difference maker that needed to happen. You know, folks were all upset around the political situation that happened a couple of years ago. But I think it was a great thing for our community because it's requiring us to wake up. It's requiring us to look at things from a different lens than we were. I think we got comfortable and we decided that we would go to sleep on the job. And we all know that when you go to sleep on the job, eventually you will be fired. And this is the situation that is happening. So I'm glad for the pain that some of us have suffered, because the reality is I think it's going to make us better.
I mean, I'm with you right there too, Doc, that it will make us better. But what I'm seeing is that we kind of go through this kind of, for lack of a better word, like we go through these valley and hills type of rhythm, you know. So if you speaking about Donald Trump being in office, that was a valley. But then you got Biden, then we feel like, oh, okay, we're back, you know, we're good now. And my concern is that sustained momentum is no longer there. That you know, like we might need a Trump all the time to be in our face, to push us, to compel us to think twice about our education, to think twice about how we're going to move as a people in this country. But I just feel like, you know, we do wake up a little bit and then we fall asleep again. We wake up a little bit and then we fall asleep. And I'm thinking to myself, we've been down this road so many times in this country. At some point, we just got to say enough is enough.
You know, we're at a point now where the way you described it, it says that it's unfortunate, but it shows that pain seems like the only thing that brings us clarity. And so I don't think that we need to get to a point where we have to understand that we should be able to operate through clarity without the pain. And so we have to speak the truth, just like you're doing. We need you in this mix. We need you guys to continue your voice, because that is something that we're going to have to clear up for individuals and let them understand that Black people were not designed to be victims of pain. We were designed to be victims of excellence and leadership and clarity. And this is something that we have to continue to embrace in our young people. We have to let folks know. We can't just let our community, when you see some young guys with their pants down and not speaking the right language, that you walk away from them and speak about them rather than helping correct the behavior. It's our responsibility to begin to make these changes within us. And so, yes, you said people call me America's toughest principal. That's because I believe that if you give a person something straight, you're a straight shooter all the time, you can get the best. That's why my students are graduating with 5 or more college acceptance letters, or they can't graduate. That's why my young people are going across the country and not being afraid. That's why we don't have the only high school in the District of Columbia with no metal detectors, even though we have a high capital of crime in our city. The reality is that somebody got to speak the truth, and that's the change agent that will make the difference in what we do.
Lise, you know, when I'm listening to Dr. Clark, I'm, you know, and it's I know you probably heard this, Doc. There's kind of reminiscent of Lean on Me. You know what I mean? I know you gotten those jokes from your students.
Well, we got the same blood, man. We got the same blood. You know, that we got Joe Clark, that we got the same blood, man. You know, you got to speak the truth all the time. That's what it's about. If you don't speak the truth, then you wind up settling for what's less. And I can't do that.
All right, I want to ask you more of a question, then I'm going to go back to my culture crew, Lise here. But Doc, do you think that now that we have created a culture of coddling Black youth, Black boys and Black girls, because we are so afraid, we have been in the fire, in the furnace of affliction for so long, that now that we've kind of become more reactive, more overprotective. Do you see that happening?
We are definitely in that vein. I hate to say it this way, and I hope the ladies don't get upset with me, but I just have to say it, that I need moms that have these sons. They got to let these young men grow up. They're not designed to be your husband, your extra husband, they are your extra person that's around you. They are your sons, and you got to let them grow up. Young men, we have to be able to train our daughters and train our young sons to be great and understand that one day you're going to be gone. Everybody has an expiration date, and so what happens to the child once you are no longer here? So yes, we are coddling. We're coddling our kids into a comfort zone where they will never ever be able to get through a hard time. And we got to fix that, because that is part of the problem that we're having. You can send a kid home for misbehavior and they come back with new Jordans. To me, that's not realistic. The reality is that, when it's time for pain, you got to issue the pain. And you issue the information when it's excellence. You support excellence, but people have to understand. That's why you teach them right from wrong all day long when they're younger, so when they get older they'll understand. But yes, there's too much coddling going on, and it is harming the threshold. But I tell you what, the coddling is not helping the lawmakers who are making it more difficult when you see Black and brown people being incarcerated, getting these astronomical years for something that should have been corrected by the parent when they were younger. Right.
Lise, I got to get your take on that one. The culture of coddling.
I agree somewhat. I do agree that we have a society that has changed. Like, the way that we view certain things has changed. And because a lot of people have seen the way that the system, quote unquote, treats Black people, they don't want to be the system. And they also don't want to become, let's say, like the Cosby effect. So remember when Cosby did the whole pull your pants up, and then he became the token of the Republican Party of this is what's wrong. So I think that's why some people are a little bit more afraid to say what they mean. But I do agree that we do need to step up and not be afraid of speaking up about things that are wrong within our own communities, because that's how we move forward.
And really quickly, Doc, one of the things that I see is that we are afraid because we don't want to treat this generation of children the way we've been treated. And I get it. I trust and believe. I get it. You know what I mean? Like, growing up in the 80s and in the 90s, but growing up in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you touch a teacher, you get suspended. If you fight more than one or twice, you get suspended. Those type of punishment and consequences are no longer present, especially particularly in Black schools. It's everything else except for that pain, except for the idea that if you do wrong, there are consequences to your action. And I'm very concerned. My wife is an educator. I'm very concerned that when you got Black boys who have the spirit of lions and giants, and they want to take over and they want to flex their muscle, and you constantly are it's okay to hit and nothing is going to happen to you, and all of those things, that we are going backwards. But my son is 8 years old, Doc. He goes to a predominantly white school, a private school. And one of the things that you can't be going up in there fighting and all of that. They make it very clear. He's going to be going to the 3rd grade. And they make it very clear. You do all of that, you do that somewhere else, buddy. But in our schools, we so lenient that we're not teaching young boys and girls, Black boys and girls, that life is going to be tough, because when you walk outside of those doors, the police ain't going to give them a second chance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I tell you, at Richard Wright Schools here in DC, we do exactly what the folks at your child's school does. We don't be doing this fighting and stuff up in here. You're not going to be coming in yelling and cursing. You're going to act like a student that's a professional every day you come to work. My young men, where I'm rocking the school uniform today. This is exactly what my young men have on each and every day. My young ladies are in uniforms. We come to work. We come to business. This is a business venture that they're on every day. And at the end of the 4 years, the 5 years that they are here, they're going to get a check they've never seen before. And they're going to be able to cash that check. It's going to be the biggest check they've ever seen in their life. And it won't say non-sufficient funds because they'll be able to use that diploma forever. So I'm instilling in these young people every day you come to work. So we don't be doing this fighting, this cursing. You go into class. There's rules and routines that I meet them from the door. You're going to either conform or you'll leave. And so that is the same process that you would do in a predominantly white school, a predominantly Asian school, predominantly European school, any other school, whatever that you have. So why not make sure that in a predominantly African-American school that the rules are the same? Excellence has to be the key. And it should be broadcast across with everyone, no exception.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Marco Clark, we appreciate you, CEO of the Richard Wright Charter Schools in Washington, D.C. Dear brother, we thank you so much. We would love to bring you back on, but thank you so much for sharing your insight about normalizing Black excellence and Black achievement, dear brother. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Go out and get my book, Parents, Where Are You? The Kids Are Out of Control.
There it is. Parents, Where Are You? The Kids Are Out of Control. Thank you so much, Doc. We truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's switch gears. First, let me just say this. Man, that was a hell of a conversation. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. Hold on. Before we take this quick break, I gotta check in with my culture crew on this one. Man, that's a hell of a conversation, man.
Take the mothers. Take it out of your son's mouth. Take it out of his mouth.
You know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I'm serious. That's a hell of a conversation. And here's why, because I love seeing black male principals, right? Because when you have a black man as a male principal, it's like, he's going to administer leadership, justice, comfort. I love seeing that. I think we need more black male principals, right? But to that point, and I'm telling you, like, I've seen it time and time again, Lise and Iman, I'm tired of seeing schools treat our people, our children, with so much weakness when we come from a place of strength. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and I get what Lisa's saying though. Trying to create that balance with the outside being so hard and tough on your young men. You still want your young men to have this space to be able to be vulnerable, be sad, be upset, get it out. But at the same time, I think it can be excessive when it's done too often. Sometimes, hey, don't cry your 2 tears in the bucket. You ain't got time to cry. Let's move on. But his leadership, that black male leadership, that could be the piece that a lot of young men are missing at home from single moms. Him being that example of what a principal should be, he could be that missing link for whichever young man who needs him. He could be that piece that's missing.
I know it's the piece that's missing. I know it's a piece. Look, in Nira's school, I see it, and she works in an elementary school, working with third graders, and it's not by design, Lise. Let me just say this, and I know we got to go to break, but it's not a coinky dink. It's not a coincidence that by the time they get to third grade, because that's the grade she teaches, the boys start to go into a certain pattern. You can literally see which boys are going to go one way and which boys are going to go the other way by the third grade. So when they talking about that school to prison pipeline, starting with the third grade, it's very real. That's a very real scenario. Like when you see a 9 and 10-year-old acting a certain way and they're not adhering to good counsel, they're not listening to the teacher, they're not, doing their work, you already can plan out. And it's unfortunate. This is it's terrible, but it's real that you can already see, you know what? You about to go down that road already. And I never thought that, third grade, you would think, being back in the 80s, when I was in third grade, I wasn't thinking about no street, man. I was thinking about cartoons and toys. You know what I mean?
I think some of it is internalizing, though. I think they internalize some of it. So if you start telling somebody from the time that you were 7 that you are bad, eventually you are going to believe it. I don't care how many times you tell them that, eventually they will believe it. And I think that that's one of the issues with the Black community. We've heard this stuff so much that you start to believe it. Like, oh, we are bad. If you've seen the doll experiment, when they started, they just showed them the doll, the black one and the white one, and they automatically said the black one was bad. And so that's my fear when you talk about and I know that it exists, but my fear is when you start labeling kids so young, do we give them a chance to not internalize that behavior, those labels, before they take them on?
You got to. I mean, the dynamic, and this is the thing about having those conversations, sisters. We have a responsibility. We can't put the responsibility on no school, no teacher, no community. It starts with the household.
Amen.
And it piggybacks what Lisa was saying. You can't keep running around screaming at your 3-year-old. He's so bad. He's so bad. She's so bad. She don't listen. To keep saying that as if it's cute or something. It's not. And again, toddlers aren't bad. They're curious. They're toddlers. Toddlers on the thing. Stop saying that your child is bad. Your child's not bad. Your child is curious. You gotta change that.
And check this out, Iman. If they bad, you made them bad.
Right. It's your fault. Exactly. It's your fault. He don't listen to nobody. You all wonder why, Mom.
I have no problems telling Black parents, no, your kid's bad as hell. Guess where they came from? A badass parent. That's your fault. That's your fault. You created that little monster. You think he came out the womb looking like that? When he came out, or when she came out the womb, they were a bundle of joy. By the time they're 3, they're a bundle of hell. That's your fault.
Yeah.
You talk about, well, why are they so bad? Because your crazy ass is bad.
Or every time a teacher call home saying your child was bad, or it's never your child's fault.
Right.
I hate that rhetoric too. It's never the teacher, but it's always the child. No, it ain't always the child.
Oh my God, you blame a child for their behavior, but the child is taught a certain way. The parent, the mother, the father, the grandmother, the auntie, the uncle, first teacher before they even step into the classroom. First teacher.
I wish I would think about putting my hands on a teacher. I wish I would have thought about it. Yeah, all right.
Put your hands on the teacher. Your hand would be gone back in the 80s, man. Your hand would be gone. And then when you get home,
in the 90s,
be gone. That's what it is. You'll be walking around handless and assless. Let me just go. Take a quick pause. We'll be right back. It's the culture of the Black Star Network. Please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about something that is, I think it's very important, but we probably don't think about it, which is loneliness. The amount of time that you spend by yourself, or alone. And, you know, during this whole pandemic over the past 2 years, loneliness has been one of the biggest factors that has led to depression and to drug use, drinking. Loneliness. Well, in Japan, one man said that he has the answer. Folks, I'm not making this up. In Japan, you can rent a stranger. I want you to really think with me on this one, because I think this might actually work in America. But you can rent a stranger. So there's a gentleman who will give his time to spend time with you. Now, it's not like an escort. It's not like that type of thing. It's like what they call this man the do-nothing guy. So, for example, there was an incident where a woman was she actually rented this stranger, and she went to her favorite restaurant because she was divorced. When her and her husband were together, they used to go to this one restaurant and enjoy each other. But now she still loved the restaurant, but didn't want to bring a friend or anybody with her to explain the situation. So she reached out for this man's services, and he went to this restaurant, and she just sat there, ate her food, and for 45 minutes, she had dinner with a stranger. Yeah. This is I want to bring my culture crew back into this part of the conversation. Iman, Heath, Lise, Winnie. Let me just tell y'all something. Japan is always further ahead in certain things of the culture.
You can rent sisters. You can get you a boyfriend that's not really a boyfriend. Hey, I love it.
So the gentleman, the stranger, his name is Shoshi Morimoto. That's him. Shoshi Morimoto. He's 38 years old, and he has built this cult following by offering himself as a warm body who simply can be there. And he works to help his clients from the social expectations of the spoken and unspoken norms of Japanese society. He's called Rental-san. That's what they call him in Japanese. And he is getting so many people that are requesting his services because they just don't want to be alone, Lise. They don't want to be alone. Let me show you how much he charges for this. Lise, Iman, just know that on March 22nd, somebody gonna come up with this idea in America.
Hey, Farajii, give me 10 minutes.
I'm about to tell y'all. Somebody's gonna tell her that. Look, check this out. He charges 10,000 yen, which is $85. That's not a lot for somebody to sit there. I guess it could be, because you're right.
Yeah.
$85 per session, and is most frequently hired to accompany people who are at a turning point in life, who want to rewrite traumatic memories or experience a vulnerable moment they feel uncomfortable sharing with friends or family. He'll just be there with no judgment and away from your personal space.
I guess it's cheaper than therapy. I mean, at this point, I'm not.
I don't think it's cheaper than therapy. I think you still need to go to therapy, but it might just be for those days or those nights or those moments when you're just like, hey, I just need a warm body. And I mean, just to talk to, or just to, I mean, what do you think? I know this is going to be somebody's business plan in a couple of days, and I'm telling y'all better give me some commission or something.
Listen to me,
Bring
okay?
this to the...
I'm taking my notes. So I have a close friend who's told me about her close friend who she offers a service where you can call her just to talk. Like if you have something you want to discuss and you don't really want to talk to friends or have somebody judge you. Now she doesn't spend time with you in person, but she charges like $100, I think, to talk on the phone with her for like 45 minutes.
Really?
It's not in person, but it's on. This is not the first time I've heard about this. And it being in person, yes. Over the phone, no. People paying just to talk. Like think of how bad things gotta be.
Well, things are pretty bad for some people.
Yeah.
For some people, things are bad. And look, you know, as crazy as this sounds, right? There's apparently is a market for this type of service. And again, this is not sexual. This is just being there, just having literally a warm body to be there. And Lisa, and I'm thinking to myself, that is interesting, but I understand, because if you have been alone, or if the pandemic has, you know, made you lonely, I can understand that. Like, you don't want, sometimes being around your family and friends can bring more stress than relief.
Yeah. And I mean, did you read the article? I mean, is he single? Because you might want to marry him, because she was like, she asked him questions and he don't really respond.
Well, that's what she wanted. Like, you probably have to fill out some form, right? You probably have to fill out some form. Like, if you want him to be talkative, he probably could be talkative.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, he would be the.
We gotta investigate this now. I gotta investigate this further.
You get him to talk when you want him to talk. He don't talk when you don't want him to talk.
No,
He's got a point.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Lisa, I know you're trying to see if that could be a good boyfriend to have. And I know that. I know that's coming from you, Lisa. Yeah. Like, you don't have to say anything.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
I just want to share my feelings. And all he would be like this, I understand. You'd be like, oh, you're perfect.
That's it. But this is awesome. And this just even piggybacks off of our previous conversation about not putting children into a box. Now, I'm not saying you can't be successful without having a degree at the age of 30 and fulfill your dreams, because I'm one of those people who actually is going through that journey. But like, this could be an awesome business venture. Let's imagine if he got people working for him, how big this can explode, especially when we are big and harping on mental health. We tell everyone go to therapy. Not everybody has insurance to cover it, so maybe they can only afford one session, and he'll be the session where you go out and have spaghetti and talk about how good the seasoned meatballs are. This can be a explosive thing for him as an entrepreneur. This is all. He's a genius, if you ask me.
Well, he's not the only one that's doing this type of service.
But also, this speaks to Japanese culture as well, because they have the hikikomori, who are young men who they get very isolated in the room. So they hire these women as sisters to get them to come out of the room. Like, they are very isolated. And it's because a lot of the norms and cultures in Japan is very,
Hold on, Lise. What do you mean try to get them out the room? Like, what do you mean?
They're like 20, usually like 20 in their 20s and 30s year old men, that they cannot get them to leave their room. Like, they seclude themselves inside of the room. You know, it sounds a lot like depression, or I mean,
I'm about to say like a mental health condition.
Yeah. And so it's a lot of them that have this. And so they have a whole system in Japan alongside of this guy called Sisters, that they actually is women, young women, that go out and they sit by the door, and they eventually will get some of these guys to actually come out of the room. And nothing sexual.
So, and that's what goes back to my point, Lisa and Iman, that that we really are at that point where people are losing touch with reality, that are suffering in silence. We're really at that point where a service like this could potentially help.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that it could potentially help. Like, what's like you said your homegirl has this hotline for people to talk about, whatever. For years there was those type of counseling. I mean, hell, you could call a psychic back in the day. Remember those days where you could call a psychic? But
call me now. Miss Cleo.
I'm dating myself right now, but it is what it is. I remember you could call a psychic, right? But look, but it's very real, because isolation, loneliness can drive you out of your mind, especially if you are in a major, metropolitan urban area. You got the whole world outside of your windows that it seems to be moving on, seems to be going, and you're in this place of darkness, or you're in this place of loneliness. And say if you are, quote unquote, what they call socially awkward, or you've tried to make friends and that hasn't worked out. You've gone to the watering hole, the local bar, or you've gone out to some club and you feel anxiety about the whole scenario. I mean, I can understand why somebody would say, you know what, let me, especially if you're tired of going out alone and you're trying to get over. You can
also use him to stunt. Now, mind you, he came to a divorce proceeding with somebody just to pull, like, this my new guy. Like, I see it. I see the vision.
It could go, no, what you're seeing, Lise, is a situation that could go far left. Can you imagine showing up at a family affair with a rent-a-stranger?
Listen, I'm not gonna be long.
Like, is that your boyfriend? Yes, he is my boyfriend for the night. Yes, he is.
Wait a minute. In that case, some of you already got rent-a-strangers. Like, let's just keep it 100. Let's just keep it real.
Look, sips tea, Lee. Sips tea. You got a valid point. Some of us already have those roles filled. We just don't call it. We don't give it a title.
Right. We just ain't labeled it.
I'm just simply saying that the way that we interact with one another nowadays is so different. Like, we can have whole relationships just through texting.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
And you think about, if you think about it, and I'm talking about real feelings. I'm talking about, real connection.
You watch MTV
just through the text
it's real. Like, you see that show, and most people like, how is this possible that you are in love with somebody you ain't never seen?
Listen.
It's
because
I'm
gonna go ahead and raise my hand.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Now, this was in 8th grade, okay? I had no business on there. But do y'all remember the Baltimore Ravens chat line?
Oh, wow.
Anybody remember that? So listen.
I don't remember that.
I go on there. Long story short, I wound up talking to somebody that's my age. When I say we never saw each other, we didn't have pictures, we didn't have FaceTime. It was none of that back when I was in middle school. None of that.
Right.
And then fast forward, I just want to say, so y'all won't think I'm crazy. We met in real life like years later by chance. But I mean, it's possible to connect with somebody and you never.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
I do see that.
It's possible.
Let me tell you.
I've done it.
But see, what I think that here's the part about it is, and I think this is the fascinating part, what drives a person to yearn for that. Mm-hmm. And then when you find that level of emotional connection, or when you find that you need to rent a stranger, like, what are you trying to fill? What are you trying to, what emptiness?
I was in 8th grade bored, so now as an adult, I couldn't tell you. I was just bored in 8th grade.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, back in the day, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, like, because Lise brought it up. Lise, you brought it up and say, well, is this like therapy? I wouldn't, in some cases, it probably is like therapy, like a self-therapy. I would not say that that's the only thing you want to do if you have experienced some traumatic event, or if, you know what I'm saying? Like, you should really go to a professional that's going to talk to you, right, and not just sit down and have lunch with you. You know what I'm saying? But no, I mean, I get it, because the way that we interact with each other nowadays is so cold.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's so many walls up, and the engagement is so it's so regulated. It's not like, hey, you want to go out and just spend some time with it. It's like you got all these conditions and parameters and boundaries, and then the connection. If you can get through all of that and then you're still able to make a connection, that's something that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think we're losing factors in the engagement piece. I think that's the part, Farajii. That's the biggest part. Like, I've caught myself, someone saying hi, and I say hi, and they say, how you doing? My response won't be good, or like it's like an automatic response to how are you, or how's your day, or hello. And sometimes I don't give the right response. Say, wait a minute, they didn't ask me that, so why was that my response? We don't engage. Like, we don't care to engage.
Or and to add to that, and that's an excellent point. To add to that, like when you rent a stranger, you know, you having somebody there. Like remember, and it may not be everybody. Everybody's friends is not like this, but you remember back in the day, it was like if you were going through a problem, your homegirl would say, "Okay, girl, I'm on my way over. We're gonna talk it through." Your sister was like, "Girl, I'm on my way over."
Wait until exhale.
And I know women, they still do that. Like, pull out the wine. I'm on my way over. Right? And I know women that do that, but it's not as often.
Right.
That is true.
Especially with COVID, you're not inviting people up in your house like that no more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now, unless you're doing a Zoom, but I mean, it's the way that we interact with one another is totally different from just 5 years ago. Now and I think I think people are looking for ways to reconnect to other human beings in a very, non-sexual way, but they're looking to try to, like, hey, I need to connect, because this is the irony of the time we live in. We got all this technology, we live all of these different places, yet we're further apart from people.
Yeah.
Drops mic, Farajii. Drops mic. That is
no, I'm serious. We're further apart. Like, you literally can have two people living in the same city and never see each other, but they have conversations, they interacted on social media, but we never, like, the way that we engage with people today has been totally redefined. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, like, how do I connect with another human being on a fundamental level without losing myself, without being super vulnerable to the point that they take advantage of me. I mean, that's why online dating has exploded right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think also the problem that pushes people that way is the fact, this narrative that we don't need people. I don't need nobody. I don't need to take care of you. I don't need. I'll cut you off real quick. You lie to me. Oh, your stuff outside in the grass. Like, no, humans need to connect with other humans. It's reality. Now, I'm not saying
and on a fundamental way. Like,
we need to talk. We need to connect with like-minded people. Maybe not the like-minded, so we can practice going back and forth as far as debating. But humans need other humans. Like, we need interaction with others. It's that simple. I don't care how much of an introvert you are, or how much of an extrovert you are trying to be. We need each other.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, ladies? I need y'all every Tuesday.
Yeah. we here.
We here for you.
I need y'all every Tuesday. So, I mean, just know that y'all not, when I'm calling you on next Tuesday, lease, you better not have a rental lease right there. I'm like, damn, I thought that was late. Be another black woman standing there like,
right.
Not saying nothing.
Deposit, sir.
You got 43 minutes with me, Farajii.
Get your money, Lise. Get your money.
Ladies, I appreciate y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. Oh, you know what? There was another piece I wanted to let people know. If you did not know, today is World Water Day. So if you did not know, today is World Water Day. The United Nations put out this tweet that said 1 in 3 people live without safe drinking water. By 2025, half of the global population will be living in areas where water is scarce. That's in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Today is
That's 5
World
minutes.
Water Day. So we have to commit to protect this valuable resource. Folks, don't take, Mos Def had the most perfect song talking about how Americans see water on his first album, on his first solo album. It's great, but water is so important, and today is World Water Day. Just wanted to throw that out there. Yes, folks, look at this, World Water Day.
Water up there with oxygen. Without water,
we will never completely run out of water on the earth, but we will you can possibly run out of drinking water. So we got to do something about agriculture, because that's where a lot of this water is coming from, and the way that they do agriculture. Just had to throw
you said agriculture. Look at that, black people. Yes. Let's buy some land.
There we go. No, seriously. We take water for granted in this part of the country, but if you go to the west part, you go to California, where you can only use it and you have to regulate your time with water. I think that it's very, like, once you realize you don't have no water, I don't know if any one of you had experience of not having water in the house, but I'm just saying.
Not having hot water, I feel like that's almost the same thing. If you ask
no water. Okay, all right, that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
World Water Day, man. Make sure we do more to protect and conserve our water. All right, now we can let you go. Lise Winnie, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast, Iman Heath, activist, entrepreneur. Thank you both sisters for being with me today on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. All right, folks, it's going to do it for me. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I enjoyed you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, for your comments, and for your overall support. Hey, look, we need you. We need you. I need you. I don't want to rent to you. I need a full you. Make sure y'all support us. Black-owned media, blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure that you show your support and that you appreciate the work that we're doing here at Black Star Network. We need your support. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle. We would love to get your support. If you can't donate, don't worry about it. We want you to still download the app for free. Tell your friends and family about it. If you can't put us any money in the pot, then at least spread the word that Black Star Network is happening. We're here. We got dynamic programming and so much more to come. So we need your support for Black-owned media like never before. BlackStarNetwork.com. That's going to do it for me. 6 o'clock is my big brother Roland Martin with Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make sure y'all tune into Rolling with Roland and so many other dynamic programs that we have here on Black Star Network. But I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for the streams, the views, everything, and your continued share and support for the culture here on the Black Star Network. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.